Lily, I'm sorry, but could you lend me $5,300?
Dexter, what the hell? A college student suddenly asking for $5,300? Are you serious?
It's for tuition.
Excuse me? Explain yourself. I thought your university's tuition wasn't something you'd have to worry about like this. What's going on?
My university requires the entire year's tuition to be paid up front. That's why the amount is so high.
You've got to be kidding me. Come on, Dexter, you were the one who said you didn't want to rely on scholarships because they made you nervous. You promised that you'd work hard and earn enough to cover everything during your time in college. If I remember correctly, didn't you have a whole plan to manage your expenses after your first year? Even if I'm your sister, this isn't the kind of money I can just hand over on a whim.
I know, Lily. Believe me, I didn't want to ask you for this either. I'm desperate. I feel like I'm grasping at straws here. I have no one else to turn to, and the deadline is fast approaching.
There's more to this story, isn't there? Fine, let's meet up and talk about it in person. I'll hear you out. Meet me at the family restaurant on the 5th floor of the F Station Mall. We'll discuss it over dinner.
I don't even have enough money to eat out.
It's fine. I'll cover that, at least.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Lily. I owe you big time. I'll tell you everything when we meet, I promise.
You better. Don't try to gloss over anything, all right?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I know this is a huge inconvenience for you. I'm sorry.
Lily, I heard you switched jobs and got a pay raise. Isn't it time you increased the amount you're sending to the family? You were the one who defied us and left home when you started college. It's about time you repay your parents for raising you, don't you think? Show some gratitude. Hi, Mom. Long time no talk. And of course, it's another message about money. You know, you really don't give up, do you? Even though you know I'll say no. If you want money, why don't you get a job? It's embarrassing enough that neither you nor Dad are working. How dare you speak to me like that? I'm just giving you a chance to be a good daughter and show some filial piety. You should appreciate the opportunity. Maybe I'll reduce the amount I send to 10 cents from now on. Excuse me, that is clearly a typo, right? You meant to say you'd increase it to $1,000, didn't you? No typo, I meant 10 cents. What the hell? Living alone comes with a lot of expenses, you know. Plus, I'm still paying off my student loans. Honestly, I shouldn't even be sending anything to you at all. And speaking of this gratitude you keep bringing up, let's clear something up. In case you forgot, I paid for my high school tuition myself. I worked part-time jobs to cover it. Wait, what? Yeah, you heard me. And for college, I relied entirely on scholarships to get by. And as I mentioned, I am still paying these loans off. Let's not forget, when I was a kid, it wasn't you or Dad who made sure I had food to eat. It was Grandma, who passed away 6 months ago, who took care of me. To be honest, I don't really feel like I owe you anything for raising me. It's normal for grown children to take care of their parents. That's how it's supposed to be. Maybe so, but I think only parents who actually did their part in raising their kids get to make that argument. You are unbelievable. Look at your brother Dexter. He is paying his own $5,300 tuition. Why can't you be more like him? Excuse me? What? He's your younger brother, yet he's managing his finances. Meanwhile, you, as the older sibling, are only offering 10 cents as support. Are you trying to mock us? Wait a second. That $5,300? That was me. I lent it to Dexter. What? I just spoke to your father. He said the $5,300 we paid at the time of Dexter's college enrollment was definitely deposited into Dexter's account. Why are you snooping through Dexter's bank records without his permission? And recently your father said Dexter gave him $6,000 too. Do you honestly believe that money was meant for Dad? Are you seriously that naive? Your father is furious. He says it's ungrateful for you not to increase the amount you send to us. What kind of daughter are you? I'm already sending $500 a month, aren't I? Are you actually pushing me to cut it down to 10 cents? Well, your father said, then stop sending anything at all. Even those measly 10 cents aren't worth it. He even joked that Dexter seems to be doing just fine earning money, so we will rely on him instead. Unbelievable. You're seriously planning to mooch off a college student now? But I can't wrap my head around it. But you know what? This might actually be a good opportunity to bring up something I've been meaning to discuss with Dad. And since you're here, I'll fill you in too. What are you talking about? The $5,300 Dad mentioned was indeed for Dexter's first year of tuition, but the $5,300 I'm talking about is something entirely different. It's the amount Dexter worked hard to save this year for his second year's tuition. He took on multiple part-time jobs to cover it himself. Wait, what? Let me explain. When Dexter started college, Grandma and I stepped in to help with the initial costs, including his enrollment fee and first-year tuition. We knew it was too much for a high schooler to handle alone. However, from the second year onward, Dexter was determined to pay his way. He promised to earn and save enough through his part-time jobs, but then Dad, who apparently has no sense of boundaries, found out Dexter was working extra hours and saving diligently. Dad showed up unannounced at Dexter's apartment one day, let himself in, rummaged through his belongings, and discovered a savings account with about $6,000. That account, by the way, was specifically set up to cover Dexter's tuition and apartment rent. But Dad, being Dad, somehow convinced himself that it was money Dexter intended to send to you and him. So what did he do? He withdrew every single cent without asking. Excuse me? Yeah, Dexter made the mistake of using an easy-to-guess PIN, which is partly on him, I'll admit. But because of that, he's now facing a tuition payment crisis. He couldn't pay the $5,300 for the upcoming year and had no choice but to turn to me for help. With no other option, he swallowed his pride and asked me to lend him the money. I can't believe this. Well, believe it. I couldn't let him drop out of school over something like this, so I paid the tuition for him. Now, thanks to Dad's selfish actions, both Dexter and I are left financially strapped for the foreseeable future. We're both going to be living frugally for a while. This can't be happening. And because of all this, I've decided to stop sending money to you entirely. As for Dexter, I'm under no illusion that he'll be in any position to support anyone else, let alone you and Dad. He's focused on rebuilding his savings and getting through college. Wait a minute, you can't just stop sending money. We rely on it. Without it, we're in big trouble. Up until now, your father has been living off the inheritance he got from your grandfather. And when your grandfather passed away 6 months ago, we used her inheritance too. But that's all gone now. You blew through Grandma's inheritance? That's bad enough, but to think you've already burned through Grandma's inheritance too, less than 6 months after her passing? What is wrong with you two? Do you even realize how irresponsible that is? Oh, don't you dare lecture me. We used most of the inheritance for Dexter. He's the eldest son and the rightful heir of this family. Everything we did was for him. Oh, please, let's not kid ourselves. Anything important involving Dexter was either paid for by Grandpa or Grandma. You two were just along for the ride. What are you trying to say? I'm saying that now that the money you've been relying on has run out, Dexter has finally realized what kind of mess he's in. He's doing his best to stand on his own 2 feet and build a future for himself. So I'm asking you, no, I'm telling you, don't interfere with his efforts.
Lily, you didn't give Dad and Mom your apartment address, right? And I'm pretty sure you didn't tell them where you work either.
Yeah, I didn't. Why?
Can I stay with you for a while? Just temporarily, I promise.
What's going on?
Dad and Mom showed up at my place uninvited. They've moved in.
What?
Apparently, they blew through Grandma's inheritance and fell behind on rent for the house. They got evicted.
You've got to be kidding me. Wait, so the house wasn't theirs? It was a rental?
Yeah, it was. I guess I overlooked that detail, too. Anyway, it's gotten to the point where they've stopped caring about appearances entirely. They've started trying to take cash from my wallet when I'm not looking, and even tried pawning my stuff.
Are you serious? After everything they've said about loving you as the eldest son and heir, they're treating you like this?
From what I've gathered, they've been relying on loans to cover living expenses for the past few months.
Loans?
And yet they're showing zero signs of trying to get jobs. They're clearly counting on me to support them. Dad even asked me when my next paycheck is coming in. At this rate, it's only a matter of time before they take my money outright. I might have to drop out of college just to support them. That would make all the sacrifices you made to cover my tuition completely pointless.
I see. Give me a little time to think. Stay put for now, okay? Dexter, can you hang in there for a couple more days before we deal with this?
Yeah, I think I can manage. My paycheck doesn't come in for another week anyway. If you have a plan, I'll try to wait it out.
Actually, I don't think you should wait at all. Tomorrow morning, take all your valuables with you when you leave for class. After that, don't go back home. Instead, head to Station A after school.
Station A?
Your destination is an apartment near Station A mansion. It's a 5-minute walk from the station.
A mansion? Wait, who lives there?
You've met them before, back when you were in high school.
Oh, I get it. You mean your boyfriend, right? The one who just came back from his overseas assignment a month ago?
Bingo! Since I don't want Dad and Mom figuring out where I live, I thought this was a good alternative. Plus, if you're going to hide somewhere, it might as well be somewhere with strong security. When I asked him for help, he didn't hesitate. He said he'd take care of you. He even offered to help find you a new place to live and assist with the financial side of things if needed.
Your boyfriend's a total legend.
I'll send you his contact information in a bit. Make sure to call him once you leave campus tomorrow, and he'll take it from there.
Got it. But honestly, I feel so pathetic right now. I've been relying on you and everyone else so much. I'm supposed to be working hard to become independent, but here I am running away again.
Dexter, listen to me. There's no shame in asking for help when you've done everything you can on your own. It's part of being human, part of surviving. What you can't do is try to shoulder everything alone. That's a fast track to burning out.
Lily.
Be grateful for the help you receive, and when you're in a better position, pay it forward by helping someone else. That's how you repay kindness.
Yeah, you're right. I'll do my best to get stronger. To become someone who can do that someday.
Lily, do you know where Dexter went? He left for university 2 days ago and hasn't come back since. Then this morning, some big, intimidating men suddenly showed up, and before I knew it, your father and Dexter were shoved into a black van with them. Oh? I was half asleep when they barged in, so I couldn't put up much resistance before the car sped off. I think we're in another state. It looks like some kind of company dormitory or something. Your father and I were both dumped here. That's the dormitory for Oniwa Corporation, a construction company. What? Oniwa Corporation? Yeah, I guess you wouldn't know about it since you've never worked a proper job. What are you talking about? What does this have to do with anything? Oniwa Corporation is famous for its employee training. They're known for turning even the most troublesome people into respectable, functioning adults. That's where Dad, and eventually you, will work to repay their debts and hopefully reform themselves. What? Why is this happening? If money is the issue, then Dexter or you could simply give us the money as part of your filial duty. There's no need for us to work like that. Dexter and I want nothing more than to get as far away as possible from toxic parents who are perfect examples of what not to become as adults. Toxic parents? Yeah, I already knew you lacked self-awareness, but your reaction proves it all over again. Never mind that. What about Dexter? Where is he? If you're going to make someone work, then he should be working too. He owes you $5,300, doesn't he? Let me remind you of how this all started. Dad withdrew $6,000 from Dexter's account without permission and spent it all. So here's how it's going to go. First, Dad will repay Dexter the $6,000. After that, Dexter will return $5,300 to me. This process is non-negotiable since it's symbolic, about accountability. And one more thing, once that's done, consider this the end. I'm cutting ties with both of you. Wait, Lily, don't leave me! Bye-bye. The arrangement with the Oniwa group was made possible through the efforts of my boyfriend. It turns out that his father happens to be an old schoolmate of the Oniwa group's president. When I confided in him about the frustrating situation with my parents and my desire to resolve it somehow, he kindly offered to intervene. As a result, the Oniwa group not only agreed to take my parents in, but also welcomed them into their company as live-in employees without hesitation. While all this drama unfolded, Dexter, unbothered by the chaos, successfully completed his move to a new place. Now he's completely immersed in a rigorous daily routine. He works part-time jobs with incredible dedication, using his earnings to cover all his living expenses, rent, and tuition fees. Despite this challenging schedule, he still manages to attend university without compromising on his studies. His perseverance is nothing short of admirable. It's clear that he's determined to carve out a better future for himself on his own terms. As for my parents, the source of so many of our problems, they're currently in their 50s. They should still be in their prime working years, yet decades of laziness have left their toll. Their prolonged indulgence in a slothful lifestyle has apparently made even the basics of hard work an uphill battle for them. It seems they're now struggling to adjust to the structured routine required by their new roles in the Oniwa group. From what I've heard, their daily schedule is quite demanding. In addition to their regular work hours, their routine now includes mandatory morning and evening runs to improve their physical fitness. I suppose this added element of discipline was deemed necessary to help them adapt and overcome the bad habits they've developed over the years. The mental image of them huffing and puffing, running around from morning until night while barely managing to keep up with their responsibilities is oddly satisfying. Just imagining them in such a state eases some of my lingering frustrations, even if only a little. Honestly, it's hard to fully articulate the level of relief this arrangement has brought me. For years, I had borne the burden of my parents' irresponsibility. Their inability, or perhaps refusal, to contribute meaningfully to the household created countless obstacles in my own life. It was as if their complacency was a black hole, pulling me into a vortex of stress and resentment. But now, seeing them finally held accountable for their actions and forced to confront the consequences of their past choices, I can't help but feel a sense of vindication. Dexter's support throughout this ordeal has been invaluable. If it weren't for him and the connections his family provided, I doubt my parents would have ever taken the initiative to turn their lives around. His father's willingness to reach out to the Oniwa group's president on their behalf was an incredible gesture, one I'll always be grateful for. However, the fact remains that this opportunity was a result of external intervention. My parents certainly didn't earn it through their own efforts. Their acceptance into the Oniwa group as live-in employees came with the understanding that they'd need to drastically change their habits. The president made it clear from the start that laziness would not be tolerated. It's a no-nonsense environment where everyone is expected to pull their weight, and slacking off simply isn't an option. This newfound structure has forced my parents to step up in ways they never had to before. Meanwhile, Dexter continues to inspire me with his work ethic and determination. Watching him juggle part-time jobs, university classes, and his personal goals is a reminder of what can be achieved through sheer perseverance. His ability to manage his finances independently and maintain a sense of purpose despite the challenges he faces is something I deeply admire. Reflecting on the stark contrast between Dexter's disciplined approach to life and my parents' previous lackadaisical attitude highlights just how much they needed this wake-up call. For too long, they had taken the easy way out, relying on others to shoulder their responsibilities. This new chapter in their lives, though undoubtedly tough, is a necessary step towards their personal growth. Interestingly, the transformation isn't limited to their work habits. My parents' new routine has also had a noticeable impact on their health and fitness levels. The daily runs they're required to do have apparently been a shock to their systems, given how sedentary they had become over the years. At first, they complained incessantly about the physical demands, but over time, they seemed to be slowly adjusting. I've heard that they've even started to take pride in completing their runs without stopping to catch their breath, a small but significant sign of progress. Despite their complaints and struggles, I can't help but feel a small sense of satisfaction knowing that they're finally experiencing the reality of hard work. It's not that I wish them ill, far from it. If anything, I hope this experience serves as a turning point for them, motivating them to become more self-reliant and responsible individuals. However, the fact that they're being held accountable for their past behavior, even in this relatively controlled environment, is undeniably gratifying. This entire situation has taught me a lot about the importance of boundaries and the need to let people face the consequences of their actions. For so long, I had tried to shield my parents from those consequences, hoping that my efforts would somehow inspire them to change. But in the end, it was only through external intervention, through the involvement of the Oniwa group, that they were finally forced to confront their own shortcomings. At the same time, Dexter's resilience and independence have become a source of inspiration for me. His ability to navigate his own challenges with grace and determination is a testament to the power of personal responsibility. Watching him build a life for himself piece by piece has reaffirmed my belief that change is possible, even in the face of adversity. In moments of reflection, I often find myself imagining my parents running laps around the Oniwa group's training grounds, drenched in sweat and gasping for air as they struggle to keep up with the demands of their new routine. It's a mental image that never fails to bring a small smile to my face, a quiet acknowledgement of the poetic justice at play. Perhaps this experience will ultimately be a blessing in disguise for all of us. For my parents, it represents an opportunity to grow and reclaim a sense of purpose that they had long since abandoned. For me, it's a chance to finally let go of the resentment I had harbored for so many years and focus on building my own future without the weight of their shortcomings holding me back. In the end, I can only hope that this chapter serves as a turning point for all of us, a moment of reckoning that paves the way for a brighter, more balanced future.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and hit the like button. See you next time.
She's pregnant. That's why I need you to agree to a divorce.
She? You mean the woman you've been cheating on me with? Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I don't really like calling it cheating anymore. I mean, now it's serious. I love her, so I'd appreciate it if you stopped referring to it that way. And because of that, I'm asking you for a divorce.
Sure, I've already prepared the divorce papers. They're on the table in the living room.
What?
Also, I'm going to stay at my parents' house for the time being. We'll discuss custody and the division of assets another day. Isabel, who's only 5 and cries when I'm not around, is coming with me.
Oh,
I'll be contacting a lawyer soon. In the meantime, I'd appreciate your patience while I work things out. Goodbye.
Oh, wait, hold on! You're cold, Luna. Completely heartless. I always knew you were like that, but I didn't think you'd be this bad. I'm honestly disappointed in you.
Oh, really? You're the one who's a married man with 3 kids, yet you fell for someone 25 years younger than you, went behind my back, and now you've even gotten her pregnant. And you think I'm the disappointing one? The audacity. I didn't think someone as pathetic as you would have the nerve to feel disappointed in me.
What? I'm not pathetic? Don't call me that. Look, I did what I had to do. A child's involved now. As a man, I'm taking responsibility for my actions. That's the right thing to do.
So you think just because you're taking responsibility, you're not a disappointment? Well, don't forget this. You already have 3 kids. You have had those responsibilities as their father long before this mess. Try not to conveniently overlook that fact, will you?
Well?
If you want to think of yourself as some honorable man for stepping up now, go ahead and pat yourself on the back. But just know this, no matter how you choose to see yourself, you better not forget the responsibilities you have as a father to all your children. You owe them that much.
Hey, Luna, what the hell are you playing at? Why did you only take Isabel with you to your parents' place? What's the meaning of this?
What do you mean, what's the meaning of this?
You know what I mean. You didn't just have Isabel, you also have Brett and Seth, our 2 sons. Why didn't you take them with you too?
That's simple. Isabel is my child.
What? Then what about Brett and Seth? Why wouldn't you take them too? You're over here lecturing me about being a father and taking responsibility, but you're not doing your part as their mother.
I'm not their mother. Brett and Seth aren't my kids.
What are you talking about?
Those 2 boys are from your previous marriage with Kathy. You divorced her 10 years ago, remember? And I never adopted them, legally or otherwise. Given that we're getting a divorce, it's obvious that the only child I have any responsibility for is Isabel, who I gave birth to.
But...
Besides, Brett and Seth have made it clear they don't see me as their mother. In fact, they outright dislike me. They've never treated me with even a shred of respect or warmth these past 6 years. They couldn't care less about me and have always been distant. Let's not pretend otherwise.
They're teenagers! They're just going through a rebellious phase. What do you expect?
Sure, I considered that possibility for a while. I even gave it time. But 6 years and nothing has changed. It's been long enough. Honestly, I've reached my limit. And more importantly, they're 16 and 15 now. They're old enough to make their own choices, and they've made it clear they don't want to come with me. They said as much.
Wait, when did they tell you that?
In the last few days, while you were busy staying over at your mistress's place, I told them I was leaving and asked them to decide if they wanted to come with me. Their answer was a firm no. It wasn't surprising, honestly. I know how they felt, but I wanted to give them the option anyway.
Damn it! If only I'd come home yesterday, maybe I could have done something.
It doesn't matter. If you're worried about custody, talk to their biological mother, Kathy. She's the one who gave birth to them.
Kathy? She's broke! Even if she wanted custody, she couldn't support them. Her life's a mess.
And that's your problem, not mine.
Come on, Luna, I'm begging you. Take Brett and Seth with you. I can't have them around while I'm trying to start a new life with my new wife. It'll ruin everything.
You are unbelievable. You have the gall to ask for a favor after all this? You want me to make things easier for you while you're playing house with your new wife? Get real. Oh, and by the way, I'll be filing a claim for alimony soon.
Alimony?
What, did you think you could just cheat, ruin our marriage, and get away without paying a cent? That's not how this works. And don't forget, you'll also be paying child support for Isabel.
But I have a baby on the way. This isn't fair. I have expenses.
Well, I guess you'll just have to figure it out. That's what it means to take responsibility as a man and a father. No complaints, right?
Hey, Luna?
Oh, Brett. It's rare to get a message from you. And being called by my name. How many years has it been since that last happened?
Well...
You can stick with calling me you, like before. Since the divorce with your father is finalized, I won't hold it against you, at least for now.
Yeah, okay.
So what's the matter?
It's just, I need some advice, or maybe more like, I don't even know what to do in a situation like this. Out of all the adults I know, you're the only one who might give me a straight answer.
What happened?
It's Dad. He's telling Seth and me to leave.
Excuse me?
He says having us around makes it hard for him to bring her, his girlfriend, the woman he cheated with, into the house. He told us to quit school, find jobs, and live on our own. He even suggested that if we didn't like that idea, we should beg you to take us in and live with you instead.
Unbelievable. He hasn't changed one bit. Still as irresponsible as ever.
Yeah, well, Seth and I, we talked about it, and honestly, neither of us feels comfortable relying on you for help. We know you've taken care of us for the last 6 years as a stand-in mom, and we do appreciate it. But our real mom is the one who gave birth to us. That hasn't changed.
That's completely fine. Back when Isabel and I left the house, you both were very honest about how you felt. I know it wasn't easy for you to say all that to me, and though it doesn't erase the past, I've come to terms with it.
Thanks. Anyway, Seth and I talked it over, and we were thinking about reaching out to our real mom.
Your real mom?
Yeah, it's a long shot, but we haven't seen her in 6 years. Back then, we didn't even have our own phones, so we don't know how to contact her now.
6 years ago. That's when your dad and I got married, right?
Yeah, and when I asked Dad about it, he refused to give me her contact info.
He probably can't. I only found out about this after Isabel was born, but did you know that your dad was at fault in the divorce with your mom?
Hey, Luna!
Yes, what is this about?
What did you say to Brett and Seth?
What do you mean?
They finally moved out recently, and I thought I'd finally get to enjoy my new married life with her. But now their mother has filed for a change in custody. I reached out to Brett, and he said he and Seth have decided to live with their mom.
Oh, is that so? And now you're, what, angry? Panicking? Whatever your emotions are, why are you coming to me with complaints?
You knew they were planning to go live with her, didn't you?
Well, I might have heard something along those lines in passing. But from what I understand, the boys thought long and hard about their future, and they decided to turn to their biological mother. She accepted them, which is good for everyone, right? Meanwhile, you got exactly what you wanted. A house with just the people you choose to live under one roof with. What's the problem?
It's the child support. I'm already paying for Isabel, and now I'll have to pay for Brett and Seth, too. Even if it's only for a few more years, this doubles my financial burden. That's why I told them to quit high school and get jobs to support themselves.
You are unbelievable.
What?
Brett and Seth made the right choice. Living with their mom will be far better for them.
Wait a minute.
As for Isabel, the child I gave birth to, I'll raise her properly and ensure she grows up happy and healthy.
But about the child support, isn't there a way to reduce the amount? My parents are in a nursing home. I can't even turn to them for help.
And what happened to taking responsibility as a father?
Well, I mean...
You need to fulfill your minimum obligations as a father. That's your duty. Anyway, I think we're done here.
Wait, hold on!
Goodbye. The custody battle over Brett and Seth, which lasted several grueling months, ultimately ended with the court awarding custody to their biological mother. This decision was not just a victory for her, but also a long overdue shift in the boys' tumultuous lives. Several factors contributed to this outcome, but the most decisive ones were their father Bill's irresponsible behavior, and the remarkable progress their mother had made in her life since her initial struggles years ago. When the court reviewed Bill's history, his glaring flaws as a parent came to light. His cavalier attitude towards raising his sons became a central focus during the proceedings. Among the most shocking revelations were his past statements about Brett and Seth needing to drop out of school and support themselves financially so that he could focus on his new relationship. These remarks painted a picture of a man more concerned with his convenience than with the welfare of his children. The court could not overlook the emotional neglect and lack of support the boys had endured under his care. Furthermore, Bill's behavior during the trial only reinforced his poor character. His dismissive comments, failure to take responsibility, and attempts to shift blame all worked against him, solidifying the perception that he was unfit to be a primary caregiver. In stark contrast, their mother presented herself as a symbol of resilience and growth. When she lost custody years ago, it was due to her struggles with health issues and financial instability. She had faced significant challenges at the time of her divorce, leaving her unable to provide the stable environment the boys needed. However, she had worked tirelessly since to turn her life around. By the time of the custody hearing, she was in excellent health and had achieved financial independence. Her stable job and comfortable home demonstrated her ability to provide a nurturing and secure environment for Brett and Seth. More importantly, she expressed genuine love and concern for her sons, qualities that had been missing from their lives for far too long. The boys' voices were also pivotal in the court's decision. As teenagers, Brett and Seth were old enough to articulate their preferences. and their testimony carried significant weight. Both expressed a strong desire to live with their mother, emphasizing the emotional warmth and care she had shown them during their limited interactions over the years. They described their dissatisfaction with Bill's parenting, highlighting his lack of involvement in their lives and his prioritization of his personal relationships over their needs. With these factors in mind, the court ruled in favor of their biological mother. The verdict marked a turning point for Brent and Seth, offering them a chance to start anew in a supportive and loving environment. However, the decision also had far-reaching consequences for Bill, who found himself facing significant financial and emotional challenges as a result. Following the ruling, Bill was ordered to pay over $1,000 a month in child support for Brett and Seth. This was in addition to the child support he was already paying for Isabel, his daughter with Luna. The financial burden was immense, particularly for someone who had recently remarried and was trying to maintain a household with his new partner. Initially, Bill tried to downplay the severity of the situation, convincing himself that he could manage the additional expenses. However, the reality of his financial predicament soon became impossible to ignore. The stress of the child support payments quickly took a toll on his new marriage. His new wife, the woman with whom he had cheated on Luna, was far less understanding than he had hoped. As the financial strain mounted, the couple began to argue frequently. The romantic ideal they had envisioned for their life together gave way to a harsh reality filled with resentment and frustration. She had not signed up for a life with constant financial struggle, and her patience wore thin. The situation reached a breaking point when she decided she could no longer tolerate the hardships of their marriage. Less than a year after tying the knot, she filed for divorce, taking full custody of their child. Her decision to leave was driven not only by the financial strain, but also by the social stigma attached to their relationship. The neighbors, who had once gossiped about their affair, now openly judged them for the mess they had made of their lives. Adding to Bill's woes, he was now required to pay child support for another child. With 4 children from 2 marriages to support, his financial obligations became almost insurmountable. To make ends meet, he was forced to take on multiple jobs, working long hours during the day and even picking up shifts on weekends and evenings. Bill's life became a relentless cycle of work and exhaustion. The once proud man who had flaunted his new relationship now appeared defeated and broken. He had alienated his family, lost the trust of his sons, and found himself abandoned by the women for whom he had sacrificed everything. Meanwhile, Brett and Seth were thriving in their new environment. Living with their mother allowed them to experience the stability and love they had been missing for so long. She provided not only a stable home, but also emotional support, helping them heal from the neglect they had endured under Bill's care. Luna, who had once stepped in as a mother figure for Brett and Seth, watched their progress from afar. Though her role in their lives had diminished since her divorce from Bill, she was relieved to see them in a better place. Her focus remained on Isabel, whom she was determined to raise in a stable and loving home. Occasionally, Luna would hear about Bill through mutual acquaintances. The updates were always the same. He was struggling to make ends meet, overworked, and increasingly isolated. His fall from grace was a topic of discussion in the company, with many viewing his plight as a fitting consequence of his past actions. The neighbors, who had once turned a blind eye to his infidelity, now openly criticized him. They regarded him as a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when selfishness and poor decisions take precedence over responsibility and integrity. Bill's attempts to maintain his dignity were met with little sympathy, as his circumstances spoke louder than his words ever could. Despite his efforts to meet his financial obligations, Bill found himself sinking deeper into despair. The weight of his choices pressured down on him, leaving him with little hope for the future. Each day felt like a struggle to survive, and the loneliness that accompanied his circumstances only made matters worse. Brett and Seth, on the other hand, were finally able to focus on their education and personal growth. With their mother's guidance, they began to excel in ways they never had before. The contrast between their current life and the one they had left behind was stark. They no longer felt like burdens or afterthoughts. Instead, they were treated as cherished members of a loving family. For Luna, the entire ordeal served as a reminder of the importance of self-respect and resilience. While she had moved on from her marriage to Bill, the lessons she had learned during that time continued to shape her approach to life and motherhood. She remained committed to providing Isabel with the best possible future, determined to break the cycle of dysfunction that had plagued her former family. As for Bill, his story became a lasting example of the consequences of selfishness and betrayal. His once promising life had unraveled before everyone's eyes, leaving him with nothing but regret and the remnants of his broken relationships. Whether he would ever find redemption was uncertain, but for now, he was left to confront the harsh reality of his choices alone.
Thank you for watching and listening. We hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought of the story. We look forward to seeing you at the next story.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and hit the like button. See you next time.
Mia, do you realize what an outrageous thing you've done?
Hello, Martha. Outrageous? I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Don't play dumb with me. You seduced my Kyle, convinced him to dissolve your arrangement to live together, and then just up and moved out on your own.
Excuse me? Seduced him? Dissolved our argument to live together? If we're being accurate here, Kyle was the one who proposed ending the arrangement.
There's no way that's true. My Kyle, who loves me more than anyone else in this world, would never suggest such a thing. I am his mother, for crying out loud.
Is that so? Well, Kyle didn't tell me anything remotely like that. Maybe you misheard or misunderstood something? The truth is, Kyle and I were only living together because David was still in the picture. Now that David has decided to leave, having finalized his decision to divorce you and move out, there's no longer any point in Kyle and I continuing to live together.
What did you just say?
That's how things stand, Martha. If you have more to say on the matter, I suggest you take it up directly with Kyle.
He is clearly holding back his feelings out of consideration for you. That's why I, his mother, am speaking on his behalf.
Well, excuse me, but I'll be taking my leave now.
You should have the decency to figure these things out without me spelling them out for you. By the way, I haven't received the new address for where you moved. What kind of person just leaves without notifying anyone? Mia!
Mia, where are you? Why aren't you at home? Good evening, Kathy. I moved out, so of course I'm not there. Didn't your mother tell you?
She told me, but why did you take Kyle with you?
Excuse me?
I heard this whole thing about you being the one who insisted on dissolving the arrangement to live together. Stop dragging Kyle into your mess.
For your information, Kyle is my husband, and it seems like your mother passed along some misinformation. Kyle was the one who suggested we end the choice we made to live together, not me.
That's impossible. There's no way Kyle would suggest something like that. This was the perfect time for me to return to the family home.
The perfect time? How exactly is it perfect for you, Kathy? You cheated, got divorced, and now you're back at your parents' place as a failed returnee. What's perfect about that?
That's irrelevant. To Kyle and me, that's just a minor detail. He's always been so family-oriented and has adored me, his big sister, more than anyone else in the world. There's no way he'd choose this moment to stop living with us.
Oh no, not this again.
What's that supposed to mean?
It means you should stop being so self-absorbed. That's what I'd like to say, anyway.
Excuse me?
Oops, looks like I accidentally hit send.
You little...
Anyway, I'll be taking my leave now.
Wait a second, you still haven't told me your new address. Where did you move to? How could you not share something so important? Mia!
I found you. I was wondering where you'd moved, and it turns out it wasn't far at all. Just a 10-minute drive away, huh? And to think you're living in a high-rise apartment building. Even if I take the train and walk, it's only about 20 minutes. Honestly, Kyle is such a wonderful son, so thoughtful of his mother. To grant me the dream I have always had of experiencing life in a luxury high-rise like this, he's the best. At this distance, I can visit every single day, no problem. Maybe I should even invest in a commuter pass.
I heard from my mother. It turns out you didn't move very far away, huh? See, I knew it. Kyle really does love me so much. So, Mia, how do you feel now that the truth is out? Kyle may seem like he just goes along with whatever you say, but secretly he's doing everything for me. The sister he adores the most. Who would have thought he'd prepare a luxury high-rise apartment just for me? Isn't it shocking? It must have completely blindsided you, right? But in the end, this is my win. With the apartment so close, I can visit daily without any issue. I might actually need to buy that commuter pass after all.
I've decided I'll be moving into that high-rise apartment with Kyle. When I thought it through carefully, I realized something important. I'm the one who's getting divorced from my husband, which means I'll have to leave this house anyway. But hey, talk about a total turnaround. This is such an incredible and lucky development for me.
It's been a while, Martha. Your timing is interesting. Considering Kyle's grandfather, your father-in-law, just passed away unexpectedly, you seem remarkably cheerful.
Exactly. Lucky is the perfect word for it.
That seems incredibly inappropriate, don't you think?
Oh, you're just jealous, aren't you?
Jealous of what exactly?
Because as of today, Kyle and I have decided to live together in that high-rise apartment. Here's the deal. I'll give you $300,000 in alimony. In exchange, you'll divorce Kyle and move out of the apartment.
$300,000? That's quite a sum. Where exactly do you plan on getting that kind of money?
Let me explain that part.
Oh, how rare. You're actually getting involved in the conversation.
Huh? What's that supposed to mean?
Oh, nothing. Please, go ahead with your explanation.
You see, our grandfather on Dad's side was quite a wealthy man.
Yes, I'm aware. He was once the owner of a large company, and even after stepping down due to age, he continued to grow his wealth through stock investments and other ventures.
Exactly, and since Dad is his only son, all of Grandpa's inheritance will go directly to him.
Oh, so that's what this is about. But considering that your mother is getting divorced from your father, I fail to see how this situation is anything you should be calling lucky.
Oh my, you're not as clever as I thought.
Is that so? I think you might want to do a little more research before making assumptions, though.
Whatever. Anyway, I'll be moving into that high-rise apartment starting today.
By the way, I never got around to asking, how exactly did you manage to track down our address in the high-rise?
Oh, one of Mom's friends happens to live in the same building. She said she spotted Kyle there, so she confirmed the room number for me. You're in unit 3602, right?
And when exactly was this?
I think she said that about a month ago.
Quite a while back, then.
Well, of course. If I told you about the move too early, you'd probably start feeding Kyle all sorts of sly lies. That's why I waited until after all the moving preparations were done to let you know, nice and last minute. But hey, it's not a bad deal for you either, is it? You're getting $300,000 to divorce Kyle. Not to mention Mom is getting $300 million from the inheritance, so $300,000 is just pocket change for her.
Oh, $300 million, you say?
Exactly. Anyway, the movers will be delivering everything tomorrow, but Mom and I are heading over by train tonight.
Is that so?
You'd better sign those divorce papers and pack up your essentials before we arrive.
Not that showing up now will make any difference.
Mia, what is the meaning of this? I just went to visit the 3602 apartment where you and Kyle are supposed to be living, but a completely different couple is living there.
Oh my, were you able to get inside? That building's security is usually quite strict.
No, I didn't get inside. When I rang the intercom for 3602, a woman answered. At first I thought it was you, so I started talking to her as if it were. But then she corrected me and said I had the wrong person.
I see.
At first I thought she was lying and pretending not to know me. So I told her to stop fooling around and to open the door immediately. But when I realized she wasn't budging, I got frustrated and kept arguing.
And then?
Then she called her husband, and both of them came down to meet me outside.
So it turns out they were strangers after all.
Yes, but what is going on? Who are those people?
You might have met them before. At my wedding, perhaps. They're my brother and his wife.
Huh? Your brother? But I thought your brother was working in Richmond.
He was. He completed his 3-year assignment there and returned to the Washington headquarters just a week ago. Since the headquarters is nearby, he and his wife moved back into their home in the 3602 apartment of that high-rise.
Wait, moved back? Why would your brother and his wife be living in Kyle's apartment?
Pardon me, but I think there's some confusion. That apartment, 3602, has always been my brother's property.
What?
While he was assigned to Richmond, the apartment was rented out for 2 years under a lease. Once the lease ended, the place was vacant for a few months until my brother and his wife returned. During that time, he allowed Kyle and me to use it as a temporary residence after we ended the shared living arrangement with your mother.
Temporary residence? Then now?
Yes, we moved out about a month ago, once our new place was ready for us to move into.
A month ago? That's around the same time I managed to figure out where you were living.
Yes, it seems you were just a little too late.
I can't believe this. If only I'd reached out sooner instead of trying to track you down myself. Oh, what a waste.
Your current address. Hurry up and tell me.
I'm not telling you.
We don't care about you. We just want to know where Kyle is. You're irrelevant since we're going to make you divorce him with that $300,000 anyway.
Are you still clinging to that plan of paying me $300,000 for a divorce? I mean, $30,000, sure, that's within the ballpark of a reasonable figure that I might understand where you're coming from, but $300,000? Doesn't that seem a bit wasteful to you?
That's just how much Kyle is worth, so hurry up and hand over my adorable little brother. Once you do, I'll make sure to transfer the $300,000 to you.
Kathy. You think I'd be gullible enough to believe in a sum of money that doesn't even exist? Oh my gosh, $300,000? Oh, yay, lucky me. I'm sorry, but I'm not that naive.
Excuse me? What do you mean money that doesn't exist? My mother is absolutely going to get $300 million, you know.
So what you're saying is that your father inherited $600 million in total.
Exactly, which is why half of it will go to my mother when they finalize the divorce.
Are we talking about the division of assets during the divorce proceedings?
Yes, of course.
Well, I'm not sure if this $300 million includes inheritance taxes or not, but let me clarify something for you. Inheritance money is not subject to asset division during a divorce.
What?
That's how the law works. Inheritance funds that your father received won't be transferred to your mother at all.
What are you saying?
If you don't believe me, feel free to ask your father directly. I heard your parents' divorce was finalized today, so I imagine all of these matters have already been settled.
Wait, what? I need to check this with my mother right away. Hey, Mom, where are you? I just heard something outrageous from Mia. She told me that you won't get a single cent of the inheritance Dad received.
It seems that's the case.
What?
While you were busy messaging Mia, your father contacted me to inform me that he had officially submitted the divorce papers. So naturally, I asked him, when will the $300 million from the asset division be transferred to me? But then he replied, "What are you talking about? The inheritance money isn't subject to asset division." And he added, the only money subject to division is $20,000 from our joint savings.
Only $20,000?
That's right. Which is why I'm currently on my way back to see your father to convince him to cancel the divorce.
Wait, let me come with you.
Mia, you know what I've been thinking? You don't have to divorce Kyle anymore. Let's just live together again as a family.
I never had any intention of divorcing Kyle in the first place.
What?
David turned down the idea of remarrying you, didn't he? And now that you've realized $300 million isn't coming your way, you're panicking. But frankly, that's your issue, not mine.
Oh, please, listen to me. Kathy and I are unemployed. But with both you and Kyle earning an income, surely you could support us, right?
Oh, about that. Kyle is currently unemployed as well.
What? What are you talking about? Wasn't Kyle working for the biggest company in the area, thriving in his career?
That company doesn't have a transfer system, right? The farthest a relocation would take an employee is just from the headquarters to a nearby factory or warehouse, within walking distance. But Kyle decided to quit his job, fully aware it would leave him unemployed, because he felt that cutting ties with both of you completely required him to move far away. He's currently focusing all his energy on job hunting.
Cutting ties?
Didn't you notice how Kyle barely responded to any of your messages or calls? That's probably why you've been bombarding me with messages instead.
Well, I just assumed he wasn't replying because you had brainwashed him and turned him against us.
Kyle has already switched to a new smartphone with a different number.
What?
To help him focus entirely on his job search, I volunteered to handle all communications from you and Kathy. I've been holding on to his old phone with his previous contact info. That phone will soon be deactivated.
What did you just say?
Surely you've realized the truth by now. Kyle has struggled for years with the overwhelming suffocation caused by his mother's excessive affection and his sister's meddling.
What are you talking about?
When we got married, the condition you set, living together, was something he reluctantly agreed to. But from the very first day of cohabitation, your constant attempts to belittle me as a daughter-in-law pushed him into deep regret. When the drama of David and Kathy's divorce emerged, Kyle saw it as an opportunity. Using the ensuing chaos as cover, we quietly moved out of the house.
No way.
Kyle left you a message. Here's what he said. Please live the rest of your lives as though your son and brother no longer exist in this world. And goodbye forever.
Oh, that's not true. Kyle would never say such a thing.
Oh, he did. Actually, when we moved into our new place, Kyle was so overjoyed that he couldn't stop laughing. The sense of freedom must have been overwhelming.
Liar! Kyle wouldn't. Give him back. Give me my son back.
Kyle asked me to deactivate his old phone along with mine, so I'll be doing that today.
What?
This means there will be no way to contact us ever again. Consider this your final notice.
Wait, you can't do this. I won't allow it. How am I supposed to live like this? This is impossible.
Right after this, I received a call from my sister-in-law, but I didn't bother to look at the screen. Instead, I turned off my phone completely. I had already made up my mind. It felt as though this was the only way I could create some space for myself in all the chaos that had been unfolding in my life. The call was most likely about some urgent matter, but after everything that had happened, I didn't want to deal with any more of their problems or involvement. I couldn't bear the thought of being dragged back into their web of lies and irresponsibility. I didn't even want to look at the screen, let alone listen to her voice. The last thing I needed was for her to ask me for another favor, or worse, for me to be roped into fixing yet another mess that wasn't mine to begin with. After years of supporting my husband's family through all their financial problems, constant requests for help, and emotional blackmail, I had finally reached my limit. I decided that this time I would not be a part of their game anymore. It wasn't just the phone call that led me to make this decision. It was everything that had been happening over the last few months. My in-laws had been a constant source of stress. They never seemed to understand the consequences of their actions. They never truly learned from their mistakes. They had been living in a world where they thought money could solve everything, and I couldn't keep supporting them anymore. It was not my responsibility to fix their broken lives. So, without thinking twice, I signed up for a new phone contract, one with a completely different number, cutting off all communication from that side of the family. I didn't care if they tried to reach me. I didn't want anything to do with them anymore. This time, I was making sure that I could have a life without their interference, their constant demands, and their inability to take responsibility for their actions. Shortly after, I heard that the house my in-laws had been renting was no longer available. They had decided to break the lease and leave. I was a little surprised to hear that, but in a way it made sense. They had been living in the house for years, but things had been getting increasingly difficult for them financially. I had known they were struggling, but I didn't know the full extent of their problems until now. Apparently, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law didn't have a place to go anymore. They didn't have a home to return to, and I felt a small pang of sympathy for them. It's hard to imagine being in that position, not knowing where you'll sleep or how you'll survive. But at the same time, there was a part of me that didn't feel as bad as I thought I should. These were the same people who had put themselves in this position in the first place. They had made their choices, and now they had to deal with the consequences. I found out that my father-in-law, in his usual optimistic way, had tried to reassure everyone. He believed that the $20,000 inheritance he had received would be enough to set things right for his wife and daughter. He thought they could use it to get back on their feet, to fix everything that had gone wrong, but I couldn't help but feel that he was underestimating how deep their problems really were. He had good intentions, but the reality was much harsher than he seemed to realize. What my father-in-law didn't know was that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law weren't exactly thinking the way he had hoped. They didn't have any plans to use that $20,000 responsibly. Instead, they had placed all their hopes on a so-called phantom inheritance worth $300 million. Yes, you read that correctly. $300 million. It was a completely fantastical idea, one based on nothing more than wishful thinking and sheer delusion. They convinced themselves that they were about to receive this massive inheritance, and it became their main obsession. Instead of putting the $20,000 to good use and using it to get back on their feet, they squandered it. They spent it like it was their ticket to a much larger fortune. They made purchases they could never afford, traveled to places they couldn't afford to visit, and lived in a way that was completely out of touch with their actual financial reality. In their minds, they were already wealthy. They didn't see the need to be practical or cautious with their money because they believed that their $300 million inheritance would arrive at any moment. The problem was, of course, that the inheritance didn't exist. There was no hidden fortune. They were simply living in a dream world, and reality was starting to catch up with them in the most painful way possible. As the days and weeks passed, they continued to indulge themselves in this fantasy, ignoring the mounting bills and obvious signs that their spending was unsustainable. They ignored all warnings, refused to listen to anyone who tried to talk sense into them, and went on a spending spree like they had no care in the world. Their credit cards maxed out, their debts grew larger, and they couldn't understand why things were starting to fall apart. By the time a month had passed, it was all gone. The entire $20,000 had been spent. Not a single cent was left. They had blown through it all in the hopes of one day being able to claim their mythical fortune, but of course it never came. There was no inheritance, and now they were left with nothing but a mountain of debt and a deep sense of regret. In the wake of their financial disaster, they scrambled to find work. The reality of their situation had finally hit them hard, and they realized they had to do something to survive. But by this point, it was too late. They had dug themselves into a hole that was hard to climb out of. Finding work was not easy, and the jobs they managed to find were far from ideal. They ended up taking live-in positions, jobs that required them to work and live in the same place just to make ends meet. The live-in work wasn't glamorous. It was the type of job that most people would rather avoid. But for my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, it was their only option. They had no choice but to accept it if they wanted to keep a roof over their heads. I couldn't help but feel a sense of irony, knowing that they had once been so obsessed with living a life of luxury, and now they were barely scraping by. From what I heard, they were struggling day by day, living paycheck to paycheck. Their work wasn't fulfilling, and they felt trapped in their situation. It was humbling for them, but in a way it was a wake-up call. They couldn't continue living in a fantasy world where everything was handed to them. The reality of their situation was harsh, but perhaps it was what they needed to truly understand the value of hard work and responsibility. As for me, I've moved on. It hasn't been easy, but I've found peace in my decision to cut ties with them. I no longer feel responsible for their well-being, and I'm no longer burdened by their problems. I've learned that I can't fix everything, and I can't change the way they choose to live their lives. But I can control my own life, and that's exactly what I intend to do. I hope, for their sake, that they eventually learn from their mistakes, but I won't be holding my breath. 2 months later, my husband Kyle had successfully found a new job. It had been a long and challenging period for both of us as we navigated the uncertainty of his job search and the financial strain that came with it. The pressure was overwhelming at times, and there were moments when it seemed like things might never get better. But through it all, we managed to stay strong together. Kyle had always been a hard worker, and after a few interviews and some intense preparation, he was finally offered a position that felt like the right fit for him. When Kyle told me the news, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief and happiness wash over me. It was as though a heavy weight had been lifted from our shoulders. The tension that had been building over the past few months seemed to dissipate, and for the first time in a long while, we were able to look forward to the future with a little more hope. I knew that this new job would give us both the stability that we had been desperately craving, and I couldn't wait to see how it would change our lives. Now that Kyle was back on his feet and we were settling into our new routine, we began to talk about the next steps in our life together. One of the things we had both been looking forward to was starting a family. We had talked about it before, but the timing had never seemed right. There had always been obstacles. Whether it was his previous job demands, financial worries, or just the uncertainty of life in general. But now, with Kyle employed again and things beginning to feel more stable, we knew it was time to start planning for the future we had always dreamed of. We sat down one evening, just the two of us, and started talking about our goals and hopes for the next few years. The conversation flowed easily, as it always did when we were talking about our future. We discussed our desires for a family, how we both wanted to become parents, and what kind of parents we hoped to be. It was exciting to think about the possibilities. And we found ourselves smiling as we talked about the little details, how many children we wanted, where we would live, and the life we hoped to build together. It felt like a new chapter was opening for us. The past few months had been full of uncertainty, but now we had overcome that hurdle. We were able to dream again. Kyle spoke about his desire to provide for our family, to create a secure environment where our children could grow up happy and healthy. I shared my excitement about the idea of being a mother, of nurturing and raising a child in a loving home. We both knew that starting a family would require careful planning and sacrifice, but we were ready for it. We had always been a team, and this was no different. As we talked, we both agreed that we needed to take things one step at a time. We didn't want to rush into anything, but we also didn't want to wait too long. We knew that starting a family was a big decision, and we wanted to be sure that we were both ready. We talked about the steps we would need to take, getting our finances in order, preparing our home, and making sure that we were both emotionally ready for the challenges of parenthood. I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement as we discussed the future. It was a relief to finally be in a place where we could look ahead with hope instead of anxiety. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, but we were determined to face it together. We both knew that there would be challenges along the way, but we were confident in our ability to handle whatever came our way. With Kyle's new job, the stability it brought, and our shared vision for the future, I felt like we were finally in a position to make our dreams of starting a family a reality. As we wrapped up our conversation that night, I felt a renewed sense of optimism. We were both excited for the next chapter of our lives, and I knew that no matter what, we would face it together. There would be tough times ahead, but with Kyle by my side, I knew we could handle anything. Our journey had just begun, and I was ready for whatever the future had in store for us. Thank you for watching and listening. We hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought of the story. We look forward to seeing you at the next story.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and hit the like button. See you next time.